is my alma mater losing its coach?
Well, he wants to go, I think. And I've been paying attention to this ever since his name was first connected to the Raiders. It was always a sense that it was coming from his perspective, that he's ready to go back to the NFL. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He's 58. He's only got so many more spins before he's going to be done coaching. He wants to go back. The connection to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the new general manager of the Vikings, who was with Jim Harbaugh for 2 years in San Francisco, the last 2 years, the two ugly years between him and Trent Baalke and maybe him and Jed York. Well, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah comes out of it thinking, hey, this is my guy if I become a GM. And it'll be interesting to see what the Vikings do. I know they've got some concern because Mike Zimmer was kind of an in-your-face negative coach. Jim Harbaugh is very intense. I think it's different in how he approaches the players. And John Harbaugh is just like Jim, and John has thrived in Baltimore since 2008. But I think Jim wants it, and I think there's a sense that Jim knows he's got to go to this interview today and convince them to hire him. But 44-19-1 in 4 years with the 49ers, and he took a team that was 6-10 in 2010 to the brink of the Super Bowl in 2011 without the benefit of an offseason. That was the year of the lockout. He shows up early August, first meeting with the team. He gets them buttoned up and squared away. And but for a couple of Kyle Williams muffs against the Giants in the NFC Championship game, they're in the Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2011.
And then it's amazing you mentioned Trent Baalke. He was in the front office in San Francisco, and now he's reemerged in Jacksonville. And is he an impediment or an enhancement for them to get a job, a head coach there? It just seems to me, who wouldn't be jumping at trying to get their hands on Trevor Lawrence in a town that's got no state tax, right? And an owner who's about to pour a ton of money into facilities and no, local media breathing down your neck en masse. Like, what a gig that is down there. And why is that job still open?
The concern has been from the moment it was reported that Trent Baalke is going to stay as the GM, that he'll be an impediment. I've heard that there have been coaching candidates that have said no thank you to invitations to interview for the job. And there's a weird sense, and I don't know this, but I'm trying to piece together the reporting that's being done, because at one point Mike Jurecki, who's covered the Cardinals for years, reported that Adrian Wilson, who's now an executive with the Cardinals and had played for them for a long period of time, he was going to be the next GM, and Byron Leftwich was going to be the next head coach. And the Jaguars have done nothing to really message or push back on any of this stuff. I get the impression that Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, is giving Trent Baalke an opportunity to find someone who would be better than Byron Leftwich in Shad Khan's eyes. And if he can't, it's going to be Baalke out, and it's going to be Adrian Wilson and Byron Leftwich in. And Rick Spielman's in the mix now, too, but I saw somebody say he could possibly be the team president, not the GM. But I think Baalke's doing everything he can to put something together that gets Shad Khan to decide to go that way instead of this Leftwich and Adrian Wilson package deal.
Wow. All right. And is this lawsuit that Brian Flores, last one, going to put the brakes on the Texans hiring Josh McCown, who has apparently a second interview there, and they love him. He has no experience, as we know, coaching. And, we've seen that work at other levels, not really in the NFL. But is that what happens there now in Houston, do you think?
One of my first thoughts yesterday, Rich, was Brian Flores maybe should have waited until all these other jobs were filled, because it would strengthen his case if there are no black coaches hired in this cycle. But in a weird sort of way, he possibly has done some of his colleagues a favor, because some of these teams may decide we need to. From a PR standpoint, it's not really going to help the lawsuit defense, because it's going to be, obvious, and Flores' lawyers say, well, come on, that's meaningless. You did that after we filed the lawsuit. Of course, that's why you did it. But from a PR standpoint, there's value. And you can't have the dust settle on this cycle and have one black coach in the NFL. You can't. And it looks like that's the direction it's going. But this McCown thing, I don't think that Brian Flores will surface as the coach of the Texans. There's a section of his complaint that specifically targets them. So, I don't think they're going to forget about that quickly. But this McCown thing, I have people say, well, he was quarterback for 16 years in the NFL. He's qualified to be a head coach right out of the gate. Why aren't the Saints interviewing Drew Brees to be the head coach then? Why didn't the Chargers interview Phillip Rivers to be the head coach? I mean, you can go down the list of guys who played in the NFL and actually played, weren't backups. And they're never mentioned as potential out of the gates, no experience required, NFL head coach. It's offensive to all coaches of all races that have been working and working and working and understand what it takes to potentially be a head coach someday, because there's only so many of these jobs. The supply outweighs the demand. There are people out there who, if you give them that job, they'll figure out how to do it. And the notion that they would give, and I like Josh McCown, but the notion that the Texans would give him that job with no experience is offensive to anyone out there who's been busting their ass to try to position themselves for one of these rare opportunities.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.